Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for friends sharing facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Daniela Rose, who will talk about her journey and experience with intuition. Daniela Rose is a qualified yoga instructor who is deeply passionate about sharing experience with individuals of all walks of life. Off the mat, Daniela is a signed model represented in both Australia and the US. Daniela has a vested interest in gut health, the power of food, and its effects on mental health. When Daniela is not practicing yoga or modeling, she's in the kitchen cooking up a storm and sharing it with her Instagram group, or getting her adrenal kick on skydiving or bungee jumping. An interesting fact about Daniela is that she has an irrational fear of seaweed. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast.
Thanks for having me. What a way to open up. I love that.
Yeah, I don't know where to start asking questions. I don't know if we want to talk about the seaweed, if we want to talk about you jumping out of a plane, about cooking. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much. So let's start with the seaweed.
The seaweed. All right. Well, I can eat it. So I'm not scared of eating seaweed. But when it comes to, I've just had this irrational fear of seaweed for a lot of my life. Like, I'm a really great swimmer, but when I'm swimming over seaweed, it's as if my body shuts down and forgets how to actually swim. So I think it's the thing. I have this concept that there's something lurking in the seaweed that's actually going to come up and pull me down. And
wow.
I've just, since I can remember, I've always been really fearful of it. So
that is crazy. And like, there's people always that grab the seaweed and run around, and you'll just probably bolt the other way.
Yes, that was my brother. My whole childhood, he was just like, Danny, hey.
That is hilarious. I've never heard that. But you know what? Everyone's got their own little things, and I love it. And I love that you shared that with us.
No problem at all.
That's brilliant. So in the introduction, I said that you're a yoga instructor, that you're a model, and you've done this and you've done that. You've done so many things in your life. But I want to know what have been the key turning points in your journey to where Daniela is at today?
Oh, wow. All right. Where do I start, Mihaela? Key turning points for me, I think. It's so funny. Even before we started our chat today, my brother downloaded some footage on my laptop of my childhood. And so we're talking back in the early 90s. And all of the footage, I as a child, right in front of the camera, you can realize that I'm just like, hey, look at me. I'm the performer. Please, Mum, turn the camera towards me. And it's just so funny that, that's how I've started off my day, to have this chat with you and kind of progressing into the turning points around my life. So as a child, I was always really, really drawn to performing. And I always found myself naturally inclined to being in front of the camera and wanting to be, kind of seen and happy to be presenting or performing.
Which is so many people's fear, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think as I've progressed through life, I've realized how much of a natural gift it is to be able to be comfortable in front of the camera. And it's something that I really took for granted. And I think as well, growing up in a European family, and this might be a huge generalization, but performing and creativeness and just going down a career of acting or being a creative isn't something that's normally nurtured. It's more so perceived as a hobby rather than something that you can do as a career. So I think from a very early age, I was kind of throwing that thing that came so naturally to me to the wayside, because I was being conditioned into, becoming something outside of that, which in the sense, when I went through high school, and we kind of came to that point in year 10, I think, is when they ask you that that question, what do you want to do with your life? And you're like 16 years old at that point, I think.
The mighty question.
Like,
I know, and it's like
ridiculous.
Tomorrow.
I mean, you like sit awkwardly with the careers teacher, and they're like flicking through the book, asking you what you like, what you don't like. And I, at that point, I was a really organized individual, and I was always really drawn to helping people. So I was sitting between either event management or midwifery. So those were my two kind of choices on the page. Even though I intrinsically had this, I was always drawn to the performing side. I was like, no. These are two kind of options that I should be going with. And so from those options, I chose to go down the path of event management after I got talked out of the shifts. I know that there's night shifts and things like that in nursing and other things that probably weren't sold to me. So I decided to go down the route of event management, finish school, and then got my degree and went straight into a corporate job. And I have always kind of had this really driven aspect to me. I'm a bit of an A-type personality when it comes to things. And I think we've resonated a lot with each other on this aspect,
100%.
like not knowing when to rest.
100%.
And I went through my career, and I climbed the corporate ladder pretty quickly. And it came to a point where I kind of had this moment around, I'm going to say 27 to give myself the benefit of the doubt, but events in itself is an industry that's extremely demanding. You constantly have to be on, because everything is so heavily reliant on things going to plan. You kind of always are in this fight or flight state to ensure that you can manage things and
it's really stressful, isn't it?
Smoothly. Yeah, it is. And there came a tipping point where I kind of looked around, and I was almost had the six-figure income. I had a house at the age of 26. A mortgage. I had the car, the lifestyle, but yet I felt this deep, emptiness inside. And on came the anxiety with that, that I was kind of getting to this point when I was realizing, hey, this isn't what I'm necessarily wanting out of my life, yet I've built up this monster that I kind of seem to be losing grips with. And in all of that, I, through my corporate career, was actually working as a model. So while I was working in the corporate side, in the background as a hobby, I was also working as a model, but I kept those two lives very separate. And for reasons that, I didn't want my corporate, job thinking that the modeling aspect was affecting my commitment to it, if that kind of makes sense.
So you were kind of 100% in both of them. So that would have been really exhausting and stressful.
It was exhausting. I almost felt like I was leading a double life.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I felt like that aspect was more exhausting, of having to almost hide something that I was so deeply passionate about underneath, yet I was trying to do the right thing by not necessarily myself, but everyone else, by having a corporate career. So it was really kind of stressful and draining. And yeah, it all kind of started to unravel. The hours got really long and I started to burn out. I had no sense of self-care. If you asked me about 3 years ago what self-care was, I couldn't actually give you an answer. I genuinely had no concept of it. And so,
what did that look like? What did your day look like if you had no self-care? It was just wake up, work, sleep, or?
literally, I was working 14 to 16-hour days, and I had no off switch. And so my relationship with my partner even was like high five in the morning, good morning, and then high five at night, good night. And it really wasn't the type of relationship that you want to be having, or the lifestyle that you necessarily want to be having. But some people absolutely thrive in that environment. It's just, I had an expiry date, and I certainly had reached that at a certain point. And that kind of all started crumbling down and unfolding. And particularly because what was happening in that time was that I was working the really intense hours, and I was in a position where I felt kind of stuck in what I had created. Then come the weekend, I was drowning my sorrows with alcohol, numbing, and wanting to forget about the monster that I had created. So it was just this like really vicious cycle. I was already running on empty. I was very depleted. And then just, I was burning the candle from both ends. And I tried quitting my job on 3 occasions. And my CEO, God bless him at the time, was, after the 3rd time, he's like, listen, I think you should take a couple of months off just to have a think about things and kind of, to have a think about where you want to be going. Because I was quitting my job with nowhere to go to, just simply out of panic and the amount of anxiety that I was crippled by anxiety at that time. I was just even thinking about it, I can't even resonate with that person, but I think I have this deep sense of compassion for people that are really in it, because I know what it's like to be in it and not actually see any other option. So there's that aspect as well.
So what did the anxiety look like for you?
It was crippling. So it really affected my sleep. It really affected my sleep. It affected my ability to just function on a day-to-day basis. And the inner critic really took hold of the steering wheel in the internal monologue, and was just constantly just this negative kind of thought pattern on repeat. And I was, as I said, weekends, I was numbing with alcohol, and, also food has also been a thing in my life where I have a tendency of, if I feel this kind of unease in the body, soothing with food. So that's kind of, and then that perpetuates other things where, if you're overeating, it brings in the other factors of, you start gaining weight and you start not feeling so great about yourself. And then there's that whole other thing as well. So that's kind of how my anxiety manifested.
Yeah.
And I had a tendency of really kind of pushing those that were closest to me away. And it wasn't at the time, I thought I was trying my best to protect those around me, when in fact I was kind of hurting them by not letting them in.
Hurting them and yourself also, because you're not having the support around you that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so grateful that, I do have the support system I still have the support system that I do around me. And I think one of the biggest things is people that might have someone around them that is in it at the moment, realizing that you don't need to have the answer for that person. And that's, as a support partner, and Amit has been exceptionally great at this, Amit being my fiance, just the sheer ability to sit with someone in the mess and not necessarily have to say anything or do anything, but just let that person physically know you're there, and mentally, that in itself is really hard to do, because we naturally want to be like, I want to have all the answers. I want to make this right for you. That's me naturally. I'm like, I've got to fix everything.
Tell me what I need to do, what I need to say.
Yeah. Can I fix this for you? But I think just recognizing, that you can simply sit and just be there is a huge thing for anyone that might be supporting someone that really is in it at the moment. I feel like I've gone on this massive tangent, Mihaela.
Yeah, no. It's kind of like, you were kind of fulfilling society's, how a modern woman in today's society should be like, that's what you were fulfilling, and that caught on with anxiety, and then that anxiety led to a number of other decisions. And it's interesting because a lot of other individuals who are listening can relate to this, because they want to fit in the mold. You want to be a good citizen in a sense, you know what I mean? You want to fit in, you want to make your partner happy, your employer, your kids if you have any, your parents. You want to make everyone happy. But at the end of the day, the question is, are you making yourself happy? And I guess that's where you came to at the age of 27 or something. That's where the breaking point was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think recognizing I'd gotten to a point where, firstly, I got so fed up with my own shit, excuse my language, but it got to a point where it got so uncomfortable where I was that something had to change, something had to shift, because staying where I was just so uncomfortable for me to do so, that things just need to start shifting. And it's unfortunate as human beings that we generally wait to that breaking point to make a change. And I think that's something I'm very much focusing on and trying to shift now, is not allowing myself to get there, to take action, to be taking action as soon as I kind of start feeling things going that way. And I think that comes with experience and just navigating the space over and over again. But yeah, at 27, like, as I said, I had spoken to my CEO and he had given me the 2 months off. And in that time, I had 2 months off, and I was kind of like, okay, so what is it that I do? And Amit and I sat down, and he was like, Danny, and Amit has this, and I'm lucky to have a partner like this, but he also has this aspect where he's always been an aspiring artist himself on top of his corporate role. So we kind of have this synergy between us. He was like, you have 2 months off, and you've always wanted to be a model, and you've loved presenting. Why don't you go over to the US in these 2 months and see if you can get signed, And I don't know, it's almost like the moment that was said, I didn't even see it as a possible option in my head. But as soon as that was even discussed, the moment I hung up the phone, something shifted within me, and it's like this possibility opened up. I was on the phone to my agency. Within 3 weeks, I had shot like six shoots that I'd styled myself for my portfolio to be ready for the US. I had booked my flights, organized meetings for the US, and I had this fire back in my backside. And I got over there in December 2017, it would have been, and met with agents. And I walked out of the US with 2 offers and came back to Australia and came back to my CEO at the time. And I was kind of like, well, I can stick around for a couple more months, but I'm just waiting for my visa to come through. And I think this is worth noting. This was the funniest part, because I had kept my life so separate, my corporate and my modeling life so separate. So no one in my corporate life knew about it.
Yeah.
When I came back to my CEO and I was like, hey, I'm actually going to be moving to the US to become a full-time model. I will never forget the look on my team's face. They were kind of like, what? And I felt this immense hurt. I was like, why are you looking at me in that way, as if I'm crazy? But then, in hindsight now, I'm like, they had no idea of the fact that I was even working as a model.
Oh my gosh. They're like, where did you come from? And now you're going to the US?
Yeah,
wow. What happened in those 2 months? What did you take?
Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
I guess that was really interesting, that transition alone. So yeah, June 2018, and 18, I made the move to the US and started my full-time, I guess, career in modeling, what was previously part-time. And that in itself was just the beginning. Like, you know, you think that that is the hardest part, the shift and making the move, but what follows is generally the harder part. So the initial step is often perceived as the hardest, but it's the upkeep after the initial step is made is I found the most challenging, because I had transitioned from being this like full-time, you know, structured. I knew when my income was coming in. I knew like what my day-to-day was going to look like. Whereas in modeling, you have no idea if you're going to get paid next week. You don't know when your next casting or job is. And so I've landed in a foreign country with no friends, no family.
Wow.
It's the first time I'm being a full-time model. I don't have like a solid income coming in. So
you went from so much certainty to kind of no certainty at all, and not having that support around you because you just moved by yourself.
Exactly. And that in itself was just like, I felt like I'd finally cut ties with this corporate Danny, and then I had this like breath of fresh air when I moved in over to the US. And then when I landed and kind of everything just came to the forefront and things just started unraveling, and I was like, whoa. And that's where, you know, the comfort factor comes in, and you just want to backpedal to what you know. It's kind of like, no, this is comfortable. I don't feel comfortable with staying.
It's like that. It's your CEO and go, oh no, that modeling thing, that was not right. I'm coming back.
That was all a lie. I'm so sorry.
Oh wow, yeah, it's interesting when stuff like that happens to us. We just go back to comfort, like you said. What is our comfort? But you literally cut all comfort out of what you did. You were just kind of in the uncomfortable 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And yeah, it was in itself that moment where I've never been, you know, the noise had quietened down because of like, I wasn't on this rat race in the sense of, sorry, excuse my earbud, in the sense of being in corporate, but the modeling industry in itself is a different type of rat race. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I was forced to face everything without the external distractions of family, you know, a full-time kind of corporate job. And that's when things really started unraveling. And I was faced with the choice, Mihaela, of turning back to what it was that I knew and how I knew I, you know, previously was operating, which was quite obvious that it wasn't serving me. Or be like, okay, Danny, this is literally a clean slate. Where do you want to go? Like, let's take this moment to rebuild. And thank goodness I decided to take the clean slate option. And yeah, that's when like this whole journey into modeling began. And because of the level of uncertainty and the roller coaster of the industry, just, you know, one moment you've got a job, you're put on hold, and then the next you're dropped. And it's just this constant roller coaster. And in the midst of all of that, while I was chasing that dream, I needed something that would stabilize and help me just process everything that was going on. And that's where literally yoga came about for me and provided me with the space to just sit and feel through whatever was going on, particularly being in a foreign country by myself. It was one of those things, a practice that I developed that I know for a fact whenever I would step onto the mat, it was something that I would never regret doing. And I just developed this connection with it and this deep love for it. And yeah, from that kind of journey onwards, I spent, what was it now, 2 years over in the States modeling, and did really well. I guess we're our own worst critics at the end of the day, and
Yes,
I think with this particular industry as well, it's kind of hard to, I think it's hard just across the board to set a standard or an idea of what you're working towards, because you get there and you're like, okay, what next? And you kind of don't take a moment to appreciate just how far you've come. And particularly I find when it's working for yourself, and I don't know if you can resonate with this, Mihaela, but just kind of what we define success, and how we define that. And do we really take a moment to sit down and celebrate the small wins on the way up to whatever we've kind of set our eyes on? And I don't know if that's something.
No, I think that's great that you mentioned that. And I do, we talk about success on this podcast all the time and what it means to different people. But I think it's on point how you said the point where we rarely take the time off to enjoy what is happening now, actually being, like in the moment, because now is now and there's never going to be another time that now, and I think that's absolutely brilliant that you said that, because you went from such a hustling corporate job and you were just go, you got your income, you got this, you got your house and things like that, and to going overseas, which was absolutely crazy, to another country, and again kind of doing the same thing, but then you found yoga where you could actually be in the now and kind of being like, and you had the time to actually think about, wow, success to me looks so different now. Like, success to me is not success to old Daniela. It's what's new Daniela want now. So what is success to you? How do you define success for you now, as in now, Daniela now?
How do I define success? For me, it's a feeling. It is a feeling, and it's that moment when you put your head on the pillow at night and look back at the day, and you can just be like, it's not this sense of anxiety or overwhelm or constant rat race. For me, success is, have I actually managed to slow down and enjoy the process and the unfolding of this journey that we've been so lucky to be given. And, I've been lucky enough to wake up to another day and enjoy it. And do I feel that I've given my best in my best full? And I think as well, realizing that your best varies day to day. And, shit happens in life. We're not going to be operating at our 100% 365 days a year. I think success is, being okay with the fact that you have given whatever it is that you came across that in that day your best, and that you're a good person. You're able to lay your head on that pillow knowing you're a good person. And you've also been able to take a moment to stop and smell the roses, because if we're constantly in the rat race, we're getting from A to B, great, but we're kind of missing the space in between, and that's genuinely where all the beauty unfolds for most of us.
That's so beautiful. It's a feeling. Success is a feeling. That's absolutely beautiful. And I mean, if you told 5-10 years ago Daniela this, she'd be like, what?
She would have questioned, what do you mean? I need a monetary
I don't understand.
I need a monetary figure. How many cars does she have? Where is she living?
Yeah.
Those things are all great. And don't get me wrong, I still aspire to, my beachfront house, is on my vision board. Like in Malibu, I don't know if I'd go back to, I love Malibu, but current status, I don't know. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, if you're not able to be happy or feel a sense of peace in like in your current situation. I think that's something to be looked at, because we can often get so fixated on what's ahead and kind of constantly be grasping for that, and which is fine and good. But yeah, taking a step back and being like, hey, what can I adjust in my current circumstances to get the most out of today?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I definitely can resonate with that. And I love that you have grown into such a beautiful woman to understand this and feel it, you know what I mean? And share it with other individuals. I think that's absolutely beautiful. You should be very proud of yourself.
Oh, thanks, Mahela. Bless you.
Let's get into today's topic. I bet you everyone's like, wow, I thought we were talking about intuition. What's this all about? What's happening? So we're getting there. So look, the dictionary defines intuition as the ability to understand something intuitively without the need for conscious reasoning. What is intuition to you, and how has it changed your life?
Okay. I think this is such a deeply personal topic, and my definition of, or feeling of, intuition is going to be totally different to what yours is. And I don't know, I'll start with this question. How many times in your life, and something's unfolded and you went against what your gut was telling you, and you were like, I bloody knew it. I knew it. How many times has that happened?
Yeah. Definitely can relate.
And, you know, for me personally, intuition is that feeling, and I strongly believe that we are all brought onto this planet with an internal compass. And that compass is leading us towards whatever it is that our soul is here to fulfill. And we all need to provide space and time in order to be able to connect deeper with that. And I think the whole concept of intuition can be quite woo-woo and hippy-dippy, but it's that internal gut feeling. And it's not to be confused with anxiety or the rational mind. It's that messaging and that feeling of when you actually do take a moment to step back and quieten down everything and give yourself space to actually feel and allow that internal guidance system to have space in order to be able to speak and just feel into that. That's what intuition is to me. And it's that, you know, spare of the moment, if you're having to make a decision on the go, just taking a moment back and being like, taking a deep breath in and out and being like, okay, which way am I being pulled by the gut? Which way, you know, and feeling into that rather than what the head might be telling you.
And it's interesting that you say that about the gut, because like you said, there's so many of us have been in situations where, you know, we got that gut feeling about someone or something or a situation, and we're like, oh, should we go there? Should we not? And then we talk ourselves out of it, or we explain logically that doesn't make sense, you know, because we're so heavily in our logic mind. And I think, you know, when you are chasing the rat race and when you're running around and when you don't have time to be in tune, you're not really running with your intuition. You're running with your logical mind. And like you said earlier, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong. It's just that we all need balance.
Absolutely. And I think as well, Mahela, it's like anything in life. I think with practice, I perceive intuition as this muscle that the more we kind of play with it, and
I like the way you put that, a muscle. I like that. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. And the more we kind of play with it and get curious, and I think also, you know, quite often our intuition might be leading us against the grain and what the logical mind might be saying. And giving yourself permission to be like, okay, I'm going to refer to it as a ping. So I'm going to follow this ping that I got today. I'm going to go down because something's pulling me this way. It doesn't rationally make sense, but I'm just going to go and weasel down this rabbit hole and see what comes of it.
And some people might feel a lot more comfortable. Sorry to interrupt you. Some people might feel a lot more comfortable by calling it a ping, like you said. Yeah. People can go, oh, it's just that ping that I'm getting. It's so much more, such a different connection we make to it than, oh, it's my intuition and my woo-woo, like you said earlier. Some people might be able to relate more. Oh, my ping is leading me that way.
My ping.
I like that. I really like that.
Yeah, and just I think the more we pay attention to those, we'll refer to it as pings, and kind of allow ourselves to really explore following them and giving ourselves the opportunity to, the more we kind of start building that relationship with the muscle, which is the intuition, to be able to then become comfortable enough to decipher whether we are coming from the head or whether we are actually working from our intuition. And it's something that we develop as we progress. And, the more you kind of play with it, the easier it becomes to decipher as well. So that's my perception of it.
Yeah, that's an absolutely great definition, and I love that you made it more, for those logical mind individuals. Let's just follow the ping. I love that, because sometimes it's hard because we're so in our head, it's kind of like, well, I want to, some people go, I want to be more in tune. I want to be more intuitive. Yeah. So the question that came to me was, is this being in tune, is that learned? Or is it kind of innate to us? Are we born with it? When did it come for you? And what do you think about that?
Sure. I personally believe, and I'm of the thought, I'm not going to come off as an intuition expert. I'm literally here speaking about my personal experience. And I think the greatest thing about these conversations is that if you take something from it and you're it triggers a thought within your head of being hey, that actually kind of makes sense to me. And running with it. I think that's the beauty of being able to share on platforms like this. So I just want to come in with that disclaimer as well. I think it's worth doing that. When it comes to whether we're born with it, I do believe that, as I said, we've all got this internal guidance system. And, some of us are more in tune than others, and some of us have allowed ourselves the space to explore but whatever it is that might be going on internally for us. But yeah, I don't know, when it comes to the intuition, I feel like it's this energy that's constantly drawing us towards whatever it is that our soul's here to fulfill. And it's whether we're willing enough to actually give ourselves the time, the space. And I'm huge on rituals. Because it's a time that you've set aside for yourself. Sorry, excuse me. I think my partner's calling me to tell me that he's passed his test.
How exciting.
Sorry about that.
That's exciting. I love it.
So I've totally lost my train of thought. Let me put this on silent. I'm so sorry, Mahela.
That's all right. All good. I think you're going down the point of that, it's innate to us that we are all born with the sense of, being intuitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And there we go. No distractions. We're constantly being drawn along, as I said, by our intuition towards whatever our soul is here to fulfill. And I'm, as I said, huge on rituals. So rituals for me, and it looks and feels different for everyone. And I think in today's wellness world as well, we kind of have almost become a little bit too construct in what a ritual should look like for each individual. And I think making something that works for you, that resonates with you, that you create a space for yourself, whether it's daily, weekly, whatever it is. I understand that we all lead busy lives, but it's a time that you're dedicating to yourself, to turn inwards and to reconnect with this guiding force within you. And, you know, I'm huge on rituals because of that fact. I give myself time and space to really feel into this thing, this innate power within that I know that I've dedicated my life to fostering a better relationship with it, because in particularly the last couple of years where my spiritual practice has become a lot stronger, and just I think the opportunity to explore this internal guidance system, so I've totally lost my train of thought just then. But I think that, just giving yourself the time to really explore it allows you to better understand what it is and how that feels for you. And I think the more I've kind of really played with the concept of intuition and played with these feelings and following the pings, the more I've strengthened that muscle to get to where I am around that particular topic.
Yeah, I love your journey on that. And I think I also believe that, you know, we all have intuition with us. We just need to access it, and we need to train that muscle, that ping. Every time it comes, it's like, if we react to it, it's going to keep coming. And if we ignore it, it's going to get more silent and we're not going to be able to hear it until we really want to. But what I wanted to find out is a lot of people might be questioning themselves and being like, well, how do I know if it's a thought or logic or if it's an intuition? So if you can share maybe when intuition has come to play in your life and how you recognized it and then the actions you took to follow it.
Sure. It's that initial pull. And the best way out, it's the first thing that kind of jolts you forward. And that's been my experience. It's always the initial kind of pull, and then the rational brain starts to come in and be trying to justify, because intuition is not a tangible thing and our mind likes to have some form of construct. That's where kind of I strongly believe that intuition is that first train of thought, that first pull, that thing that does feel right, and there's no question about it at in that split second before the rational brain starts to kick in and be like starting to question everything. But no, this isn't part of the path. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't line up with what the rational brain might think, etc. So from that sense, understanding that it's the first kind of thing that you will feel, and giving yourself time to really sit. If you have the opportunity to get, to a point where you're able to sit without any agenda as well, and be like, okay, so and I think a lot of us go into the space of meditation or whatever it may be with an agenda in mind, and that's the rational brain.
How would you go into, because me thinking about it now, I'm like, well, I'm going to sit there without an agenda. I guess my agenda would be to relax. My agenda would be to connect.
Yeah. And we have a particular idea of what relaxation or connection looks like, and we're constantly striving to try and achieve what that looks like in our head. And if we don't get there, that's where the unease and the discourse happens. So literally showing up in whatever space it is, even if you're out and about, and being like, all right, I'm here, I am open, and I'm ready, and just leaving it open, and not trying to attach any meaning or anything to the moment that you've given to yourself ultimately, and to open up to be able to really feel into what it is that's going on internally. But I think that one of the biggest things is we have an idea of what a meditation should look like. You have this kind of set of set of expectations or around, this is a successful meditation. If I've managed to clear my mind for 3.4 seconds, then this is this has been a good one. But what's that saying? There is never a bad meditation. The fact that you've even managed to get yourself down and seated in a position and just giving yourself the time and space to just think and allow things to bubble up to the surface is just, a great thing in itself. So
yeah, I like that. Sitting down without an agenda. I think a number of individuals would struggle with that, because taking me, for example, just the thought of, what, like there's no agenda, just sitting there and feeling it. It's like, you kind of want to put like the logical, the organized brain goes, okay, this goes here. Okay, this goes there. All right, that's that. I'm making sense of this. And this is why this is happening. So it's interesting. It's interesting of just letting go. And that's when I guess you're most in tune, and that's when things will come, and, you'll get that pull feeling that you mentioned, and you'll get that intuition, and you will be in touch. So what's recently happened to you that you believe you were really in tune and intuition came to you? Is there something that comes to your mind, an example?
Yeah, I think I discussed this with you. There was a really, I've had quite pivotal moments in my life where I've been open to asking the question. And I think one of them was probably the most kind of standout. But on a daily basis, as I said, I do really try and navigate this space by being curious and playing around with this muscle and strengthening it, etc. But I think one of the biggest things around intuition was the time when I was in Bosnia-Herzegovina, in Mostar, and there's this place that's really holy up there. It's called Medjugorje. And my cousin and my mother and I decided to go up to the hill where Mary appeared. And I was brought up Catholic, and I've always had this underneath this questioning around the constructs of just Catholicism in general and the rules and things like that. But the feeling of it, I've always resonated with, but there are certain things that I haven't necessarily. Anyway, that's totally off topic. My cousin is quite religious, and she said going up this hill, she was like, when I go up the hill, when I go up the hill with a question, I always seem to come back down with an answer. And I was like, in the back of the car, I'm like, okay, sure. This is
all right.
Even discussing these topics with you, Mihaela, I think I have to be real with it. It's I feel so woo-woo sometimes.
Yes.
I'm just really? But there's just, I think that's the thing about intuition is there's just no denying, at the end of the day, it's just, so deeply down in your gut that it can't be denied.
Yeah. And when someone says to you, I walk up a hill and I come back with my question question answered, you're like, all right, I'll just walk up to any hill any day and ask questions. Do I really have to walk up hills every day to get answers? Do you know what I mean? But the thing is, just to let the audience know, Medjugorje is a really holy place. People from all around the world go to this one place to worship, to climb this hill where Mary showed to these shepherds. There were shepherds, weren't they? There was a number
Correct,
of them,
yeah.
and they all got interviewed, in regards to, did this happen, did this occur, and they all came up with the same stuff. So essentially, now it's been recognized as a really holy place, and this is why a lot of people go up this hill to get answers. That is the kind of little background behind it.
Absolutely. And I think also disclosing that, you don't necessarily need to be in a holy place to follow your intuition. It's just, you asked me specifically about a standout story surrounding surrounding intuition. You don't need to be in a holy place. Like right now in my bedroom, like following your intuition, it's possible. You don't need to be yet.
But I think the aspect of that is you are more open when someone tells you it is a holy place. I think that is the whole combination with your mind. You go, I am now going into a holy place or a space in my head, and therefore your intuition opens up. That's where I think that comes from.
Yeah, and I think you're more open and receptive to things, and I think that's even in itself the discussion that we're having around intuition is allowing yourself, that openness. So how the openness when I'm in a holy place, how can I bring that out to my day-to-day life?
Yes, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's, and we've been trained. Our rational brain always wants to go back, kick into gear into something that makes sense and isn't woo-woo. But once we kind of start playing with it and realizing that the universe, in fact, is playing with us as much as we are playing with it, it becomes a really interesting space.
I love it. It goes so well. But let's go back to Medjugorje. You're walking up the hill.
I was walking up the hill. And I had to make a decision. This was August 2019. I had to make a decision on whether I was going to come back home and stay. So I was living in the US, whether I was going to come back home or whether I would come back home, touch base, and then fly back to the US. And my cousin had made this comment to me about going up the hill with a question coming back downstairs. I was like, you know what? I'm going to play. I'm going to have a little play with this. And I should pull up, I should see, but I'll tell you the story. I was going up the hill and I was like, you know what? God, source, Jesus, Mary, universe, whoever's listening to me right now, should I be in LA or should I be in Australia? And about 100 meters up the hill, I should have brought this up earlier, there was this rock. And I kid you not, there's no denying, Mihaela, I sent it to you the other day, didn't I?
Yes,
Mihaela?
you did, yes.
There was this rock about 100 meters up the hill that looked like so.
That was crazy. When I opened up this message and I saw this photo, I was like, whoa, like this is like insane.
So there was this rock that was, I'm trying to pull it up, about yay big. And it was exactly like Australia. Here we go. So
for anyone who wants to see it, jump onto YouTube where we've got the video version so you can see this.
Of course, because sorry.
Look at that.
I don't know if you can see that.
Look at that. That is without Tasmania, of course. That's Australia.
Yeah. So that rock was just there. And it was like, it literally hit me in the face. I was like, there's no denying that I can't take that as a sign. And so that was what kicked me off to actually staying in Australia. And everyone's like, you're crazy. What? You followed a rock home? What the hell, Daniela? And this is like, sometimes I even question myself. I'm like, oh God, seriously, I can't even believe I'm telling people this story out loud. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But the fact is that I came home. I stayed for the couple of months following the rock, and then hello, Corona, pandemic. And I have literally since stayed home, and I'm very grateful that I am home because in the US, obviously, it's quite a tumultuous time. And just for, being over there and not being covered by health insurance and the rest of it, I'm very glad that I followed that pin and that I so openly asked and received and was so open to actually following what I had received as a sign, and it has brought me to where I am here today. So I think that's one of the most memorable. But when it comes to day-to-day life, it's really kind of, and when you're in alignment with your intuition, because there's no kind of second guessing when you are in the flow. it's this energy that's continuously just pulling you along.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that story. I mean, when you first told me about that, I was like, this is absolutely amazing. Like, I love that the fact that you were like, oh yeah, no worries. Okay, cool. And then you asked the question, you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then you're like, but how does this make sense? It's interesting because we are never going to understand how it makes sense. And that's something that we have to accept and just understand and know and feel it. So I love that you shared that with us, because intuition is something that leads us throughout our life, isn't it? And it helps us be the person that we are. And you've had so many pivotal moments in your life where intuition has played a major role in it. So, and we touched upon the fact that you don't need to go to a holy place, be in a holy place to be open to intuition. You can do it anywhere, everywhere. So what would your advice be for anyone that's listening, how they are able to open up and be more in tune and listen to their intuition? What's some practical advice that you could offer them?
Sure. First of all, if you're on the go, taking a moment before making any decision and just breathing into it. And just taking a moment, and when you feel like there's this force behind you, to just intrinsically take a step back and breathe into it before actually making the decision. And in that split second, you can really give yourself the opportunity to feel into the intuition. There's that aspect. There's the aspect of, as I said, I'm really big on rituals. So actually setting up a space where, once a week, daily, whatever it may be, just to give yourself time and space to just allow to sit without an agenda and just feel into whatever is coming up for you. And I think as well, not being afraid of, if there's something that continues showing up, a feeling or an emotion, I think they're really good guidance systems as well. And not being afraid to sit down and explore what might be coming up. And I quite often in meditations will ask the feeling or whatever it is to come and take a seat at the table and tell me and let me know what it's there to kind of, instill within me or depart a message or whatever it is. So not being afraid of actually bringing forth whatever it is that you might be trying to suppress down. There's that aspect. And as well, I think as well, connecting the mind and the body. And we all have this really huge fascination with high intensity, which I think is sensational, but moving your body according to what your intuition is telling you it needs. So really providing that space to really feel into how your body wants to move and cultivating from that space. And a lot of my yoga flow is connecting the breath with the movement and really just feeling into what the body is wanting from me and developing that relationship. And don't be afraid to, as I said, that story about the rock. Sometimes I feel really crazy talking about it, but I know for a fact there are so many people out there that I've spoken to that have had similar things play out. And they're like, you can't deny the fact that there is this force. And when we're when we're willing and open to receiving, that's when things start moving through. And also without the expectation, it's almost having to balance this openness without expectation, if that kind of makes sense, because as soon as we attach expectation to it, we're kind of trying to draw an outcome, and that's the rational brain coming back into play. So it's kind of, remaining open, have a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing is kind of what I try to live with. So. Yeah,
and that's definitely not something that you'll achieve overnight.
No. Absolutely not. And I'm no professional, folks. I'm no professional, but
But you've got experience with it. You've opened up so much compared to, Daniela that was in the corporate world and Daniela that wasn't listening to the pings in her life. And then finally came the anxiety and everything, and that was a big ping for you. That was a huge ping for you, and you were like, okay. And if any of you guys are like, what's this ping? Listen to the whole podcast and you'll get the ping.
Yeah. They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What ping? What doorbell?
Yeah. So I think, these practical tips that you've provided are just amazing, and you can put them into your everyday ritual where you can feel the space, where you can introduce new habits and ritual into your life, where you can ask and you can receive and be and listen. I think that's just if everyone just did a bit of that, it would just solve so many issues in the world, on an individual basis, on a community base, on a world base.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it is that space. It's allowing space within the noise, and we're constantly, and I think in today's society we've just been conditioned to constantly have noise, and it's how can we break through that and just give ourselves that moment of breath and space in order to be able to see things from a different perspective and allow those messages that are wanting to come through to have the airspace that they need.
Yeah, that's beautiful. On that note, I think this podcast has been absolutely amazing. I believe you have provided so much value to the audience in regards to this, and they'll be sitting back and being like, wow, this is really making sense. Like, all of the things that this has happened in my life, people will be able to sit and actually reflect on their life, also from what's happened and what is going to happen, which I think is beautiful. And thank you for providing this absolutely amazing knowledge. But before we let you go, we do want to know because this is the Natural Health Podcast, and we're all about, like you're all about routines, making things happen, rituals and stuff. What is one natural health hack that has changed your life? And it's usually a little secret, but you're going to share it today.
Oh, one natural health hack. God. I can't go past a hot lemon water in the morning. It's just honestly just to flush out toxins from the night before, get the digestive system moving for the day ahead. And that has been something that's been with me for a very long time. And honestly, I think it's a great way just to start your morning and get your fluids up. So yeah, I think that's brilliant. That I'll leave everyone with.
That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And if people, if they want to touch base with you, because I know you're big on cooking on your Instagram, you're absolutely amazing. Yeah. I know, and the meals you come up with are just like mind blowing. It's just like, how did you make that with this? Like, I try and make it, and it's like, it's nothing like that. Like, it does not look like anything like your photos. Or I just go, I'm not going to try.
So always give it a try.
I know. So I know you've made a meal plan. Is that right? Can you tell me a bit more about it?
Yeah, so I'm all for, so all my recipes are vegetarian, gluten-free, and I'm not huge to follow recipes, so I really try and design stuff that is low fast, doesn't take too much time, is easy to stick to, and I like to show people that they can actually incorporate a lot more veggies in their meals than what they initially thought, for on a budget as well. I think everyone assumes that healthy eating has to be really expensive, and that's one of the biggest things that through this whole process of modeling overseas and being on a pretty strict budget, I realized how easy it can be to eat on a pretty restricted pay. So I've designed a meal plan that takes in budget, time restraints, and just ease into account. And it's the 5-day no-fuss meal plan. So you've got 5 days, which include breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then also 3 yoga practices with it. So
I didn't know the yoga practice came with it. That's amazing. That's so good. That's like the biggest bonus. Awesome.
Yeah, 3. And I really, with my yoga practices, I do try and keep them as accessible to everyone as possible. So.
Awesome. And they're able to, I'll put in the link below. You can access that and get your hands on that. Because these meal plans, this food is just absolutely amazing. It looks amazing, absolutely amazing. And where are they able to find you?
You're able to find me at Daniela Rose, Daniela Rose 930 on Instagram, and I've also got my website, which is www.danielarose.com.au. So.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your space with us. I absolutely appreciate it. Thank you so much, Daniela.
No stress at all. Thank you so much for having me as part of the show. And I'm sorry about the call halfway through, but it was such an honor to be here today.
Don't stress, all good.
To you always.
all good. All right, thank you for joining us at the Natural Health Podcast. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health.